Assalamualaikum and very good morning. I'm Dr. Ahmad Fairuz from Medi Esan Occupational Safety and Health, Mayosh. Okay, today basically we want to discuss about risk assessment and management. So before we go for the risk assessment and management, we need to understand why we want to do the risk assessment and management. So basically, we are exposed to hazard every day, especially we are talk about workers and at their workplace. Okay, so before that, we need to understand what is hazard. Okay, this is the fundamental and the concept that we need to understand. And before we go to calculate the risk, by definition, hazard is anything that can cause harm. Can cause harm to the people, to the workers, especially to the environment, to the properties, and so forth. What is risk? Risk by definition, we know that risk is the likelihood, the possibility of hazard to occur at the workplace or anywhere. And so, but today we want to discuss the risk at the workplace. How we want to quantify, how we want to evaluate the risk of hazard at workplace. Okay, so there are many tools. Basically, there are many tools to do the risk assessment. But the most popular, the most common and easier and practical that we do in the workplace is hazard identification, risk assessment, and risk control. Okay, before we go to the HIRARC, I would like to bring you to discuss about type of hazards and also the risk control. Because if we are not understand what is the type of hazards, we are not understand the risk control concepts, and otherwise there is no use, there is no practical, and you cannot come out with the good HIRARC assessment. Okay, so because we need to identify, we need to know what is hazard at our workplace, and when we can identify as much as hazard at our workplace, then we can do the risk, we can calculate the risk, and then we can measure the risk, and then after that we can do the intervention, which is the risk control. The concept is very simple. Okay, first we need to identify the hazards. We need to identify the hazard, and then we need to calculate the risk. Okay, risk assessment and risk control. Okay, we go to our slide. Okay, so this is the concept of HIRARC. Okay, so this is the concept of HIRARC, hazard identification, and we need to identify the hazards. Second, after we identify all the type of hazard, we need to do the risk assessment, and after that we need to give the suggestion and recommendation for the risk control. Okay, so we just do some revision. So hazard, we have 5 type of hazard. So this is very basic: physical, chemical, biological, ergonomic, and psychosocial, right? And psychosocial. So we have 5 type of hazard. So under physical, there are many other things in the categorized and in the physical hazard, such as extreme heat, cold temperature, radiation, noise, pressure, vibration, and also mechanical. Okay, chemicals. I believe there are billions of chemicals in the world. Okay, so these are all chemical majority can cause hazard or harm to the workers and at the workplace and also environment. So we must have some control on the chemicals. Biological as well. There are many biological at the workplace as well, like viruses and bacteria, fungal, and others, and other microbes, biological hazards. Ergonomic, there are many ergonomic risk factors that can cause musculoskeletal disorder, and also psychosocial. Last but not least is psychosocial, important, because psychosocial stress and so forth can cause mental health issues, and not only mental health, and also can cause the physical hazards as well. So after we identify all the hazards, we need to do the risk assessment. Then afterward, we do the risk control. Okay, risk control. Okay, risk control is hierarchy of risk control. We need to do the risk control following the hierarchy of risk control. which is the top one is the elimination. If we can eliminate, we try to eliminate. But if we cannot eliminate, we need to try substitution. Can we substitute or not? Such as benzene, can we substitute with the xylene? Okay. Isolation, can we isolate the area? So that's only specific person. Only we can minimize the person that exposed to the hazards. And then the last one is minimization. Usually we divide into three: engineering, administrative, and also personal protective equipment. Usually in practice, in the workplace, people only focus on the personal protective equipment, PPE, gloves, mask, respiratory, and so forth. So there are many risk control that we need to consider from the top and the bottom of the list PPE. However, in practical, we can do combination. Means if we apply isolation, we apply engineering, and also we can apply for the PPE. Okay, so that's the basic concept. And then the risk control on the top, different to the bottom. The top can reduce a lot of the risk to the hazard. Okay. Before we go to the HIRARC assessment, okay, how we do at the workplace. I will show you how we do at the workplace. How we start our HIRARC assessment. Basically, we all understand what is HIRARC assessment. We identify the hazard. Very simple step. Second step, we assess the risk. We do the risk assessment. I will teach you. And also we will recommend the risk control. Okay, very simple, HIRARC. But before we start, what we need to do, what we need to have in the workplace is your work process. And your work process from the beginning, and from A work unit, they go to B work unit, example, and they go to C work unit, and last kali is your D work unit, is your final. Okay, final product, warehouse and so forth. From the raw material until your final product. Raw material. So this is example of work process that you need to identify each work unit. Okay, so before and after you identify all your work process, okay, this is the first step. Second step, you need to identify your work activity. Your work activity. Okay, you already divide into several work unit. Okay, am I right? Work which is following your work process. Alright, so these are all your one work unit, second work unit, third work unit, and fourth work unit. Each work unit, okay, you need to identify what are the activities they are doing in this work activity. So each work unit, you need to identify their work activity. In unit A, what is their work activity? 1, 2, 3 activities. Work unit B, what are the work activity? Unit C, what are the work activity? And D, what are the work activity? Okay. After that, number 3, from each work activity, you need to identify again your HIRARC. So this is each of these. You need to identify the hazard. Okay, you need to identify the hazard. When you see the workers doing their work, doing their duty, you must consider all the 5 types of hazards. You look any hazards occur or not, happen or not at their work activities. So this is very important because this is we need the experienced person to evaluate to identify your hazard. Okay, so this is the basic concept. So we go. So first we do the work process, and then work activity, and then work unit. So what after that we do? We see the table. Very simple table. I will show you the table of HIRARC. Okay, how we do the assessment? I already explained to you the hazard, and then risk assessment. Risk assessment. What is risk? Very simple. Likelihood times your severity. So likelihood, we have skills, we have severity we have scale. You need to refer to the table. Very simple. You already identify the hazard, and then you follow your table likelihood and severity. So these are the formula, So the likelihood, okay. So these are the category of the likelihood, The likelihood of your risk assessment. Most likely, possible, conceivable, remote, and inconceivable. So this is the severity table, Catastrophe, fatal, serious, minor, and negligible, and 5. So risk metric, risk, we follow the risk metric, likelihood times your severity based on your table. So we grade our likelihood 1 to 5, the Likert scale severity also 1 to 5, and then we see if fall under the green is a low risk, if fall under the yellow is the medium, and red is the high risk. And this is the priority that the suggestion from the HIRARC guideline. Okay, so this, and lastly I will show you the example of the HIRARC assessment. Okay, this is we did at Batik factory. Okay, so this is example of the work process that I mentioned. So this all the work process. So each work process we need identify the work unit. Then after that we can identify the work activity in each work unit. Okay. Okay, so this example of HIRARC. Alright. So we have the hazard identification. They have 2 columns. We identify the hazard, can cause effect. Okay, what's the hazard, what's the effect of the hazards, and then we calculate for the risk assessment. But before we calculate the risk assessment, we need to identify the existing risk control. Of course, there are hazards occur at their workplace, but perhaps they already have some part of the risk control. So we need to identify existing risk control at their workplace before we consider the likelihood. So we need to mention the existing risk control, so that in the risk control we are not mentioned, we are not recommend the same thing as existing risk control. Okay, so then we identify the likelihood, the severity, and we calculate the risk. And then after that we need to apply our risk control to recommend to the employers and the employees, and also at that workplace what we can improve following the hierarchy of the risk control concept. Okay, so that's is in conclusion, we need to do, we need to have experience. We try again, do many times your HIRARC assessment, and you can pick up many things when you do the HIRARC assessment. So basically you need to remember HIRARC assessment consists of hazard identification, risk assessment, and risk control. Thank you.